Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to calculate the delta H of a reaction using Hess's law. But before we get started, what exactly is Hess's law? This law states that regardless of the multiple stages or steps of a reaction, the total enthalpy change for the reaction is the sum of all changes. Now let's look at the problem. Calculate the delta H of the following reaction. CH4 plus 2O2 goes to CO2 plus 2H2O, given that the delta H for CH4 is 300 kilojoules per mole, the delta H for CO2 is 400 kilojoules per mole, the delta H for H2O is 500 kilojoules per mole, and lastly, the delta H of O2 is 0 kilojoules per mole. Before jumping into the problem, we have to remember that the Hess's law says that the total enthalpy change is the sum of all changes. So, does that mean we just have to add everything up? Well, not quite. We're actually going to have to do a couple more steps in between before we can just add up to find the total enthalpy. In the equation, we notice that O2 and H2O both have 2's as their coefficients. Now to suffice this in the final equation, we're going to need to multiply 500 by 2 to suffice the 2H2O and 0 times 2 to suffice the 2O2. Now to find the total enthalpy change, we're going to need to take the delta H of the products and subtract it by the delta H of the reactants. Here, the products are blue and the reactants are red. Now for the product side, we see that we have to add CO2 plus 2H2O. Given the delta H, we see that's 400 plus 2 times 500. For the reactant side, we see that we have to add CH4 to 2O2, and that's 300 plus 2 times 0, given the delta H. Now after all the calculations, we can get that the delta H for the overall reaction is 1100 kilojoules.